The luxury residential market is evolving, but are you ready for what's next? ThinkLab has just launched our Lux Residential Research Initiative. Now, what interests us about this sector is that when times are good, this sector spends. When times aren't, the luxury sector still spends. However, there's little research out there to define what luxury means today, how it's evolving, and how brands need to engage differently in this sector. So, at ThinkLab, we're creating it. The insights will be ready by November 2025. But don't worry, there's still time to sponsor and shape this research. Simply reach out to me, Amanda Schneider, for more information. What if hotel guests no longer expected luxury, but demanded adaptability? Today, we explore how Marriott is reimagining hospitality for a world where the line between home, work, and travel has officially blurred. Welcome to Design Nerds Anonymous, the podcast that sparks curiosity at the intersection of business and design. I'm your host, Amanda Schneider, founder and president at ThinkLab, and speaker, now featured on TED.com. In this episode, we're exploring how hospitality is being redefined in an era of rapid change, and what that means for the spaces we build and the moments we remember. Joining us today are two visionaries helping to shape that future at one of the most influential brands on the planet, Marriott International, a company that, get this, they open up a new hotel roughly every 20 hours. Today, I'm joined by Aliya Khan, VP of Global Design Strategy and Product Development. She leads the design direction for over 30 Marriott brands, helping to reimagine what it means to create spaces that feel personal, flexible, and deeply human. Joining her is Jason Robertson. He's the VP of Product Management and the force behind Marriott Labs, the company's innovation hub. With a quirky background that we love here on DNA in both physics and design nerd all the way, Jason is leading the charge on everything from robotic furniture to energy innovation, ensuring that Marriott doesn't just keep up with change, but shapes it. Together, they explore how hospitality is being reimagined through smart systems, adaptable space, and immersive design, and why the most radical shift may be creating space for pause in a world that never stops. So to set the tone, we asked each of them to introduce themselves and sum up the future in one word. Here's Jason.
My name is Jason Robertson. I am responsible for a few things here at Marriott. One of them is all the technology that our global design team uses to help our owners and franchisees build on strategy really great properties all around the world. The second is I'm responsible for our labs program, where we partner with other big companies to bring new products and solutions to market that make the whole industry better. And I see the world getting more bifurcated. And what I mean by that is it is getting easier and easier to make things in the digital world and harder to make things in the physical world. And I do not yet know how we're going to reconcile those differences.
That's a good one. My name is Aliya Khan, and I lead design strategy for our full service through to mid-scale brands. What does that mean? I want you to think about our hotels like a meal. What our team does is we pull the ingredients, we write the recipes that then we hand over to our partners who are actually building the hotels. So they are partnering with the design firms and the owners and the architects to construct them. We are behind the scenes working with ingredients to write those recipes, which is very fun. We have the very fun job of dreaming and taking things that are out there in the future and pulling them into what could be for the present and making them a thing. I'm now on to what the future holds. It's interesting because travel was such an enigma once upon a time, and now people are able to do it with such relative ease that to me, I almost see it as a challenge now. How do we continue to keep it exciting and fresh so that people don't treat it with a level of blasé and just continue to aspire and want to do more. But more than that, I think push farther into places that are not expected. It's very easy to go to London, Paris, Barcelona, but how do you push that excitement of going farther and going to different places and not being blasé about travel because it's just so much easier?
And if you had to pick one word to describe the future, what would that be?
I still find it exciting. And it's exciting in an unknown way.
I think that ties really well into your response, because one of our previous guests in this season was talking about the movie Ready Player One. Oh, yeah. And I think we have to be careful that the world isn't better in the virtual world than it is the physical world. So perhaps this is a reason to really focus on how we can create these exciting experiences that people want to leave their house, leave their city for.
As part of that, as the virtual world gets more and more built up, one of the side effects of that is real physical experiences are going to become incredibly special. The value of these moments that you have in real life are going to become these magical things that become rarer and more precious and more sought after. This tension is going to exist where we can all travel really easily, but having these special moments.
We're just getting started. A quick pause for this short break, and we'll be right back.
I'm probably not alone or isolated in feeling that right now there's so much that we could choose to worry about and things feel really uncertain. What I find is that when we think about and spend time imagining the future, it can actually calm some of those fears. It can actually do something. What we're trying to do is catalyze action. So when you see and feel and can touch the future in your mind, it inspires you to want to do something today to shape it. That's the entire point. Spending time thinking and discussing gives us the opportunity to shape that better future that we're all hoping for. I'm Kaylin Reed, Applied Insight Strategist, Certified Futurist, and host of the Alternative Design Podcast. We started alternative design as a beacon of hope for our industry at a time when the world was no longer business as usual. At Kimball International, the future isn't something that we wait for. We search for it.
All right, let's get back into it.
I also think there's something really beautiful about regrounding in the basics, where sometimes we're so intent, and we're all guilty of this, designers particularly, we're so focused on, I have to do all of these things at the same time, but sometimes all someone wants to be able to do is have the most incredible night's sleep, but wake up in this way that they feel well rested, but they also wake up knowing exactly where they are. And how do you bring it full circle back to the core values of what comfort on the road might be, what travel should be able to offer you, and what are things that maybe somewhere along the way when you're traveling that much, you kind of feel like, oh, it's fine, it's okay, I don't need this when I'm on the road. But you shouldn't have to give up. And how do you almost bring the loop back to reclaiming the basics while still being able to feed that wanderlust and that curiosity and the new?
And this probably goes into the scope of what you all do on a daily basis. And Jason, in our pre-call, you shared some stats about how many hotels you're building, how many you're renovating. Can you share those for our listeners?
Yeah, for sure. It's probably worth talking about just the scale of Marriott to begin with. So today we have over 9,300 properties open around the world. That's north of 1.5 million rooms around the world. We just bought a brand called Citizen M, which added a whole bunch more rooms and diversified our portfolio of brands. We have approximately 230 million Bonvoy members all around the world that are actively engaged with our loyalty program.
Me too. I'm one.
Yay.
Thank you for your loyalty.
And so we just have enormous scale. And the thing that is perhaps amazing or impressive beyond that is that we still open a hotel approximately every day. Last year, we opened I think I saw the number 123,000 new rooms in our portfolio in 2024. We also have been around a long time, and we have a lot of renovations going on too. And so of the 9,300 properties around the world, we do something like 1,000 renovations a year. And that could be on a subset of rooms. It could be on a public space. It varies pretty wildly, but we have a lot of design and construction going on all the time.
That's amazing. Just the sheer scale of that, I think, is mind-blowing. One of the things I think you mentioned is that you're building a new hotel every 18 to 36 hours. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah, technically 20 hours. Isn't that wild?
That's mind-blowing. But given that, you have a vested interest in really understanding this balance of what Jason talked about in his intro of how to help the real world maybe stay connected to the pace of change in this digital world. So I would love to hear surprising or revealing research that you're following that might relate to what's next for hotels and hospitality spaces.
Let's take this hybrid traveler, this hybrid work phenomenon. These people who are now actually employed by a company that is in another country, therefore they're able to live wherever or work wherever, and they no longer have apartments, and they go from long stay hotel to long stay hotel. And in the course of doing that, they also now have different expectations out of their hotel rooms. Sometimes they're traveling with their partners. Now, two people need to be able to operate out of a hotel room. That age-old 10-foot long desk under a television, which everybody used to sit at, is no longer workable. Two people can't sit at it. Two people can't eat at it. Also, who wants to stare at a wall and stare at a television? What are we doing to reconfigure our rooms? But then secondarily, there's also the thing of, if you're now in this room all the time, what does your sleep setting look like? What does your rest moment look like? And what does your socialization moment look like? And what does your work setting look like? And are you really going to call housekeeping every time you want to go from one mode to the other? And so we go through this process of understanding that this is a consumer need. And then Jason explored a partnership with a company that actually has developed this ingenious product that allowed us to play around with. We're not breaking walls. We're not moving plumbing lines. We're not blowing holes in ceilings. So that partnership with this company called Ori Living was an opportunity for us to thread the needle where we took these insights, understanding who this traveler is, to offer this solution where now we've packaged this up, and for us to be able to take prototypical select service brands and use the intelligence of consistent prototyping to solve problems, that's the fun. That's the magic. That's where actually being able to take a recipe and refine and be able to say, not only can you solve problems, you can solve it efficiently and at a real price point. That's when it clicks.
I'll jump in there and tell a little bit more about working with Ori too. So Ori, they make robotic furniture or dynamic rooms. And one of the things that called our attention to this and got us really interested was this bed that drops down from the ceiling. So underneath it is a sofa or a desk, and then the bed can lift up or drop down. And suddenly you can change this room pretty dramatically from an office to a bedroom, or from one bed to a two bedroom, and make it really shift to match the needs at any given moment. When we did some research around this early with our customers a few years ago, we saw 67% of people were really interested in this kind of flexibility. This is coming right out of COVID at a time. And so people were confined to spaces. And even when they were traveling, they needed to use that space in multiple ways. We're seeing that kind of need persist coming out of COVID and the pandemic. And people still want these really flexible and dynamic spaces to help them achieve whatever they want to achieve in real time.
I just want to clarify. So the bed actually goes up into the ceiling and then comes back down to truly rearrange the space. And then follow-up question to that, because I work out of hotel rooms all the time. They weren't designed at a time when we were all working remotely, and you need to have lighting with the window. So does this allow you to reframe some of those settings in a way that's a bit more advantageous?
That is one of the many ways. There's also so many other things that we've started to put out there, and some of them are even more low tech. Like, I have a pet peeve. It's a very simple thing. I don't like to do Zoom calls with my unmade bed behind me. But now in a simple hotel room, I can offer desk configurations so that I can control how I place my laptop. Or you're traveling with a friend. One person wants to watch TV, one person wants to take a nap. How do you now both coexist in the same hotel room? What are those options around design? Is it screens? Is it drapes? Is it theater drapes? What does that look like? Not all of it is high impact, high technology, but a lot of it is driven from just human need. Like, how many times have you sat on the edge of a tub and done a Zoom call because someone in the room is sleeping? Or I don't have children, but I have many coworkers who have children, and they're like, oh, the kids go to bed, and now everyone's sitting in the hotel room in the dark, whispering, drinking their Chardonnay because the kids have gone to bed and you can't leave the room. And I just feel like as designers and problem solvers, there's so many things that we have now been able to do to help solve for that.
If I could go a slightly different direction too, there's another big macro thing that's been happening for maybe a decade now, which is people are less interested in stuff and more interested in experiences.
Yeah, fully.
In pandemic times, in the sense that people were investing in their houses to make them nicer to be around and things like that. But we're seeing this return with a vengeance, and people are really interested in having these experiences or owning less stuff. And some things that point to that, we hear something close to 70% of people are actively looking to buy and own less stuff as just part of their lifestyle. So like Marriott entered the outdoors with some recent acquisitions and some recent launches. And we are thinking deeply about how people travel for different reasons all over the place. So being outdoors, having experiences, going to entertainment venues, like we have the Eras Tour, the Tour of Beyonce happening now. And we're investing in these deeply experiential reasons for traveling. And one thing that points to that is the outdoor category is growing 2.5 times as fast as the rest of the travel industry. So people are craving this connection to nature and just being outside, and the general, I can't get it anywhere else. Like buying something doesn't satisfy this need of being out in a place, or going to a concert, traveling to Dublin to see Taylor Swift. These are moments that people are choosing to travel for because they are this one-of-a-kind experience that I can have.
We'll be right back after this short break.
You cannot separate the human experience from all of the lived experiences that take place inside spaces. You simply can't. When the planet thrives, we thrive. And when we're making informed and smart choices that are future-focused and human-centric, we're doing good things for humanity and for the planet. I love supporting the DNA podcast because it is literally right on the leading edge of understanding the future and being curious about where this industry is headed, but also where humanity is headed. That's a driving thought process for Mannington as well. Mannington Commercial is a curious organization. We seek to understand. This is Cindy Kaufman. I'm Vice President of Marketing with Mannington Commercial, and we are a very proud sponsor of the DNA podcast. We would love to connect with you, and if you don't know who your rep is, we hope you'll come find that person on manningtoncommercial.com.
Thanks for sticking with us. Now, let's return to the ideas shaping the future. That's amazing. When I think of outdoors, I think of when people are working together so much more frequently over Zoom. When they do get together, they really want to be together in different ways. How is that trend shifting or shaping how you guys think about space?
Element Hotels is one of our brands that actually started to go there, where we created what's known as this thing called Studio Commons. And the idea was, why do people go to Airbnb? This idea that you're not in a hotel, you're kind of at home, you have this living room that you can hang out in, you can cook dinner together, you're home away from home. And so what Element did was, in every hotel, there are 4 or 5 rooms, they gang together, and you have access to a living room, a dining room, and a kitchen. And the thinking was you're away as a team and you want to have this separate space that isn't part of the lobby experience. In COVID, we know that families that were reuniting after months loved it. Sports teams love it. Friends' weekends love it. But it's exactly that sentiment of it's a human need. You want to get together. You want to hang out on this oversized sofa and watch TV and, I don't know, pop popcorn or maybe get up in the morning and cook breakfast together. But there are just those certain things that you are not able to do as seamlessly in a hotel room. And this was our opportunity to play in that space. Fast forward now, of course, we have Apartments by Marriott, which is fully vetted, furnished, soft branded, full service apartments, which is a different type of product. So we are much more in that apartment and residential space. Jason, when you were speaking earlier, outdoor is really an opportunity to rethink, how are we welcoming people? And what does that look like? Perhaps the priority historically would have been very different. And that's, I think, the fun of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's something in there too about just making the outdoors accessible to more people.
Yes.
I go camping for 2 weeks in a tent every year, so I'm pretty comfortable with it. But I imagine that a lot of people are less comfortable with it, and just providing them with the bare minimum necessities to be comfortable in that environment and get them some exposure is really cool.
It's interesting because I feel like this idea of creating these experiences was really something that we started talking about a lot as millennials came of age. And millennials, there was all these statistics out there that millennials value experiences over things. And we're definitely seeing that trend across these generations. Do you guys look at these preferences by generation?
We're thinking a lot about Gen Z right now because they're really starting to enter into our market and be independent travelers. And they are interacting with devices and with other people through devices more than any other generation historically, and are just as comfortable interacting and building relationship through devices.
And I know at some of the Marriott properties that I've been in, I have had someone, instead of them calling and being like, is your room okay? Which it almost terrifies you at this point when the phone rings in the room, right? Because we're so not used to it. They text you and they say, if you need anything, we're here, we're available via text. And it's almost like a concierge. Like you can just text them anytime, which I'm definitely not a Gen Zer, but that is much easier for me. I'm curious, as you guys think about design and the physical built environment, as well as these experiences, are your experience teams integrating with your recipe creators of the physical space?
Oh, very much so. It's all types of expertise coming together to solve the problem. And I love to see how expertise comes together. The answers are richer. They're more thoughtful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're really at a flux point with some of these things now because the technology side is moving so quickly. It does have some impact on the physical space in ways that we couldn't have predicted 5, 10, 15 years ago. And we have a lot of buildings that have been built over the last 2 decades. I think about our mobile key. So you can go to a Marriott, you can check in on your phone. In some places, you can actually get your key and get right to the room. So what does that do with the lobby space now? How do you make that check-in, that place that used to have 3 check-in counters and somebody would greet you, how do you make that relevant now? How do you make that person in that space useful for this future where you may not always stop at the front desk? Or in your example, Amanda, chat is pervasive in our hotels now. And we have to not only think about the guest-facing part of that, but just as importantly, perhaps more importantly, we need to think about the operational reality and how to connect all the things in the back of house to deliver on whatever the guest is asking about. Sometimes it's a bit of information, and that's easy. Sometimes they want a pillow, or sometimes they want some food or something. And all of a sudden, you have to have people not only manning the chat, but you have to have the right channels and connections through that technology for the housekeeping team, for the F&B team. And you need to start to build this ecosystem of technology in the back of house, which is infinitely more complicated than having a chatbot or having even a window. And so I see a lot of flux happening now and where we are building and investing in those technologies throughout the hotel, both guest facing and the bottom 90% of the iceberg, which is the back of house systems that support that 10% above water that faces guests. And how those things shape each other over time is going to be really fascinating because, again, like where we started this conversation, is it's getting harder and harder to build and change stuff in the real world and easier to build and change stuff in the digital world. And so that pace of technology change, and just as importantly, people's expectations about that, we need to find a way for our physical places to keep up with their expectations in real time.
Jason and I were talking about this morning. What is the stuff that now you can actually use AI for and free up time in everyone's day so they can get back to the richness of thinking through the nuance and the detail that goes into building experience, whether it is from a technological enrichment perspective, a design perspective, whatever it may be. We all have 24 hours in a day. And I feel now more than ever, everybody's on overtime. I use ChatGPT for so much now. And by doing that, it's freeing me up to really focus on other things that maybe I haven't always had time for.
Let's just go back to the core of each of your roles. Is there a problem you're solving right now that gets you excited to get out of bed every day, to come into work?
One thing I'm super excited about right now is we have a partnership with a company called Carrier. They are some of the earliest companies that made HVAC equipment. And we've been working with this team for a long time, thinking about how do we deliver a great controlled atmosphere in a room, but also drive a lot more sustainability into that. There's two major sources of energy consumption in any hotel. The first is cooling rooms. The second is heating water. And together they are something like 60% of the energy intensity of any hotel. Depending on your size and scale, that changes a little bit, but generally speaking, it's the vast majority of energy. And we have been working with them a while and invented a new solution for these two systems that can reduce the energy intensity of a hotel by 50%.
Amazing.
Which is an unheard of number in these circles and energy intensity. So this one gets me particularly excited. We take a lot of big swings at hard problems. And because of that, we have sort of low percentage hit rates. But when we hit one big, and it's really, really, really exciting.
That sounds like a big one. Aliya, what's one thing that you're super excited about that you're working on?
I'm really loving this opportunity to focus on the outdoor product and take all of the things that you've ever learned about hospitality and literally peel the walls off of it. And how do you take those everyday things of eat, sleep, shower, but do it in the outdoors and create that tie-in reminder and relationship to the landscape that you're existing in, and actually give something back to where you're visiting, but also make it memorable. I wouldn't have qualified myself as an outdoor traveler. And maybe because I don't have that expertise, that I'm really enjoying and appreciating the opportunity to work on something like this. So once the product is all out there, you'll have to tell me how we did.
That's amazing. I can't wait to see it. And I'll be touring it in a variety of different levels, depending on where I'm traveling and when. Last question I'd love to close us out is fast forward to 2040. What is one radical possibility you imagine for the future? Maybe something that feels wild now, but you're like, this could actually happen.
There are two big wild cards. If you'll allow me to, I'll have two big wild cards I see in the next 20 years. The first is quantum computing. So for anybody that doesn't know, quantum computing will have perhaps 1 million times the computing power as traditional computing. And suddenly all of the things that have happened over the last 40 years of computers, it's like the drop in a bucket, and all of a sudden we can do infinitely more with computers. And I think as we think about all the stuff that we're constrained by in AI and the models we build, it's all constrained by computing power, and quantum computing will decimate all of that in really amazing ways and also really scary ways. And so that's the first big wild card I see. The second one I see is I follow a couple of weird blogs and stuff. And just recently, in the last few years, scientists have started to replicate fusion. which is a process in which we can get more energy out of a reaction than we put into it, which essentially means that we get free energy. And if I think about how everything in the world is contingent on energy and how we're dependent on the constraints around energy, this also is a huge wild card and will dramatically change everything about our lives. This one's farther off probably, but if I imagine things like travel becomes effectively free because we don't have to pay for the fuel anymore. If I imagine all the discussions we have about AI, is people are opening nuclear power plants just to power AI data centers now. And it will unlock amazing and also terrifying things for us as energy becomes less expensive and potentially more sustainable.
Fascinating. Aliya, what would you add?
This makes me laugh for many reasons. And it makes me laugh because, first of all, Jason and I have the same birthday. But could two people be more different? Because as he was speaking, I was thinking to myself, and I almost want to take us to a moment where how do we achieve all of that? But then just as easily with the flick of a switch, how can I control for myself moments of pause? Over the weekend, I was looking at some photographs of some travel and like the MIT chapel. You go into this building and it's beautiful, structured, formal, and then there's this shaft of light. Or you look at Tadawando in architecture, and you look at even Corbu and like how light and form engage. And this idea of experience and poetry and differentiation and all of those fantastic things that ultimately travelers seek. And how can you give them that? But once in a while, you kind of have to peel back everything else and give them the respite, give them the pause. And so what is the alternate that we can offer ourselves or allow ourselves to control, where we step out of the conversation, recenter, and then come back in?
I love that balance, though, of pushing forward with technology and also taking a breath, taking a step back. I want to thank you guys so much. I think you are the perfect complement to one another. Really appreciate both of you taking the time. Like what you heard? Now it's your turn to shape what's next. At ThinkLab, your voice doesn't just matter. It drives the research behind this podcast. So if you're curious, opinionated, or just ready to make an impact, we'd love to hear from you. Click the link in the show notes to join in on our research and be part of the data that's designing tomorrow. Design Nerds Anonymous is a proud member of the Surround Podcast Network. Special thanks to the podcast production team, Hannah Vitti, Rachel Senator, and Rob Schulte.